Welcome back to Exploration Arcanum. My name is Jason. My guest today is Katie MacLean. Katie is a sound healer and meditation teacher. Today, Katie is going to share with us her journey into metaphysics, as well as share with us her knowledge of Tibetan Singing Bowls, also known as sound bowls, and how she uses them in healing and meditation. I'll put links to Katie's social media in the description below. Before we begin, if you enjoy this or any of our episodes, please consider giving them a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps a lot. Thank you. Welcome back to Exploration Arcanum, everyone. My guest today is Katie. Katie is going to talk to us about sound, how you can use it for meditation and for healing. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So we were talking a little bit before about your background in what will you actually call yourself? Will you call yourself a practitioner of metaphysics or esoterica? How do you usually introduce yourself?
I think as of right now, I usually just introduce myself as a sound healer and a meditation teacher, although I'm always looking to expand my knowledge in areas that I can help people with energy healing.
So sound is one of the most important senses that we have. And aside from just being a sense, it's also music, how we feel when we hear poetry, when we listen to a motivational speaker. Sound has an effect on our bodies. So tell us a little bit about how you began focusing on sound and what brought you into this area of practice.
I definitely got into sound healing through my love of crystals. There's a variety of different sound bowls. A lot of people start with the brass or copper bowls, which are the Tibetan Singing Bowls. There's also a lot of quartz crystal bowls. The bowls that I have are from a certain company where they use 99.99% pure high-grade quartz crystal as the base, and they blend it with other kinds of crystals to add those different properties to the bowls. So there's a crystal store that I used to go to all the time that sold these bowls, and I kind of lusted after them and kind of never thought that I would be able to be a sound healer or get any of those bowls, and I wanted one for a really long time. So it definitely started with my love of crystals. And then one Christmas, my partner surprised me and said I could go pick out a bowl for Christmas. And from then on, the obsession continued, and I started taking courses and building my collection. And yeah, so it's my love of crystals is where it all started.
I have a love of crystals as well. And we both, I think the first time we actually interacted was through the Metaverse and Metaphysics Twitter Spaces with Jana and Davida and Jody.
Yeah.
Is that was crystals your original form of focus, or your a love of crystals? But did you practice crystal magic and earth magic and things like that?
Yeah, I think I probably started with yoga first, but it was very infrequent, and then that kind of turned into meditation and crystals and how crystals can help meditation. But I definitely say once I started getting into the singing bowls, then kind of my other metaphysical exploration opened up a lot more, and the different synchronicities I was getting from the universe to learn about different topics certainly expanded.
Do you know how or why they're called what they are? Because I know I've heard them called both Tibetan sound bowls. I've heard them called singing bowls, like you just said. Do you know why they're called that? Is it just because of the sound they make?
Well, I think the Tibetan bowls, which are typically brass, they come from they used to be made by monks. So I think they come from more of a Tibetan Buddhist path, because they used to also kind of make them as part of their devotion and their meditative practice. In terms of these bowls that I have are called Crystal Alchemy bowls. It's actually one particular company that operates out of the States, and I think there's a couple people who created it and they kind of got a download, and they kind of have a secret recipe of how to create the bowls. So they don't actually really reveal that to the public. They keep it very like close to their chest, and there's only certain distributors. But it's my understanding that they don't create the bowls with any intention of what the note is going to be. They just kind of make the bowls of different shapes and sizes with different crystal properties, and then they kind of like tone them after to see what notes they are. And then their belief is that, for example, if you get a lot of G notes, which is associated with the throat chakra, then that must mean that the world needs a lot of help with their throat chakra. So they don't necessarily predetermine how many of which note is going to be produced.
And the throat chakra is primarily for communication.
Mm-hmm.
Are there certain techniques that you have to do to make the different sounds? Like, if you hit it at one part of the bowl, does that make one sound, and a different part of a bowl a different sound?
For the crystal bowls, it doesn't make any different sounds. You can either just run your mallet around for kind of like a continuous, almost like humming sound. There's other mallets that you can kind of play it like a chime if you hit the side of the bowl. They do have musical notes, so some people do kind of play them like an instrument in terms of playing certain bowls to make chords and that sorts of thing. But I'm more of an intuitive player, so I kind of just get to know my bowls and blend as I go.
Sometimes that's the best way. How are bowls used in meditation and healing? Can you give me an example of something that you may do when you use them?
Well, definitely sound, since it's like known as like the creative force of the universe. And I know a lot of people have the theory that Om was like the Big Bang or the first sound of the universe, the same way that the Bible starts with the word was with God. So if you set intentions, or if you want to manifest and you actually vocalize something that you want to move towards, and then you play the bowls, I believe the bowls actually amplify that intention. So it can definitely be used that way. But also depending on the frequency of the bowls, and these bowls are all 432 hertz or higher. So they can actually help with clearing of emotional blockages, but they can also help with clearing of physical blockages and spiritual blockages as well. And I know that for kidney stones, they actually use sound technology. So what they do is they match the resonance of the organ, basically, and anything that doesn't match the resonance of the organ then falls away. So that helps me understand how these bowls can be quite detoxing when they're played, because they can also kind of reprogram your cells. So it's always important to drink a lot of water, because everything is vibration, no matter what the material is made out of. So when you're introducing a high frequency, things of a lower frequency are going to detox and fall away.
Is there any experiences that you have done? Like, have you helped someone in the healing process yourself and seen the effect it had on them?
Well, I mean, I know the most like immediate effect I've seen with people is just taking them to other meditative states or helping move energy through their body, whether we know what blockages those were. I don't know if we'll ever know, but definitely deep relaxation and moving energy throughout the body. But in terms of one of my teachers, who I learned some of the sound healing from, she has had someone have a pretty wild, almost spontaneous healing after going to a couple of her sound baths. It was someone who was on, I think it was morphine for about 10 to 15 years after some kind of serious car accident or something like that. And in a sound bath, experienced kind of like heat and pain. And the pain was almost like unbearable, but it was almost like it was like moving out of his body. So he had talked to her after the session about what went on, but he said that he was feeling better. And then he came back for like I think he came back to check in with her a couple weeks later, and he said that he hasn't had to take the morphine, and he didn't even have to wean off of it, which is pretty crazy.
And everyone check with your doctors before stopping or starting any medication.
Yes,
um,
this is advice.
are you So tell us a little bit about sound baths, because I've heard that before. At a lot of events, one of the features they have is a sound bath. So what is a sound bath exactly?
Well, I know everyone does them differently, but basically it's just an experience where you kind of lay down and relax, and the practitioner or multiple practitioners will play a variety of instruments so that your body is kind of washed with sound. Some people incorporate mantra or intention setting at the beginning, certain kinds of breath practices. Sometimes I like to do a little bit of yoga nidra to kind of get the person out of their head and into their body. And then it's just, that's why I like it. People don't really have to have expectations. They can just sit back and relax and experience the bowls, and without preconceived expectations. There's no saying where they might go during that journey.
So it's like I lay down, I close my eyes, I relax, and then the person comes and does the rotation of the bowl in the vicinity of me, and I just kind of just take it in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, you're impacted by both the sound of the notes and also the frequency of the bowls just kind of washing over you. So it's both like an auditory experience and then also physical in terms of the vibration impacting your body being in the same space.
Can you please favor us with playing the bowls? I see there's three of them in front of you that I can see. Could you give us a little sound so we can hear what it sounds like?
Sure.
Sorry, I kind of zoned out there. That was too beautiful. That was awesome. And how long does it go on, and just until it just stops, or can you stop it, or does it just are you or should you not stop it? Just let it go.
Usually I just let it go. And then even when you kind of start playing another bowl, it kind of will just like fade out, but you can also just kind of keep them going and they kind of blend together. And then I even have two bowls that make a binaural. So they're technically so close in note that your brain can't really distinguish that it's not the same note.
Okay.
So it ends up having your brain's kind of trying to equalize because it's trying to make sense because the notes are so close. And I know I'm using my hands and this is going to be audio, but your brain's trying to make sense of two notes that are very close together. So it's kind of like a unifying, centralizing effect.
Nice. So I want to go back to something you were talking about a little bit earlier. You mentioned traumatic yoga. What is that, and how is that used?
So I earlier this year I took a trauma informed yoga course. It's still yoga philosophy, the yoga postures, but it's just also teaching it from the perspective of giving people options for different physical abilities. But also one unique aspect of it that I really enjoyed is we had a whole class on kind of the language of pain and how that can impact even just the way that you describe a pose, how that can impact how someone experiences pain in their body or whether they find it acceptable or not. So it was a training that was taught by a school of psychologists. But basically it's just for like accessible yoga that's respectful of different abilities, and people being gentle with themselves so as to not trigger their nervous system to go too far when they're healing.
Okay, so like physical therapy.
Yeah, it's a gentler approach to yoga than kind of the mainstream westernized fitness focused version of yoga.
Okay, that makes sense. So when you're doing this, um, does it help if you're in a enclosed environment for the bowls to work better? Does it matter? Can you be outside and it work just as well?
Yeah, both work just as well, but they might sound different to your ears, whether it's an enclosed space or outside. I have done them outside, and the sound does carry, and people have had really good experiences. But I've also done them in quite enclosed spaces because I have a converted school bus that I travel on for part of the year. So I've done some sound baths on my bus as well, and so it's got kind of a rounded ceiling in an enclosed space. So that's really cool. It's definitely much more of a bath effect in an enclosed space.
When you come back to LA, I have to come check you out. um, okay, so let's talk about best practices for new uh, beginners. Um, where should I get my bowl? Because I got my bowl from a street fair, and the person was selling bowls and crystals and all this other stuff. And he even did like a bit of a ritual above the bowl before he gave it to me. Would you say that's a better way to go than, say, your Amazons and Walmarts where you can just order one through the mail?
Yeah, I would definitely get one from a metaphysical shop. And I would try and incorporate it just even to your daily meditation practice, and maybe starting with like one bowl. And I know with the Tibetan singing bowls, which are made out of brass, you can usually tell whether it's been made by a machine or not. So I don't know if that's important to people, but some people would prefer that it not be made by a machine and that it's more unique. But usually if there's like a little dot in the middle of the bowl, that's how you know it's been made by a machine. But yeah, I would just start by just kind of
I'm just
fiddling
checking
around.
for a dot just to see. Just checking. All right, no dot. I think I'm good. All
So
right.
they both work equally well, but some people think there's a different kind of energetic perspective when it's not machine made or not identical to something else. But either way, if you just find a bowl that you can actually get going, because I know some of the Tibetan bowls are harder to get going than others. So just find one that works for you and you kind of like the sound of it, that you'll actually want to kind of play it before you go into your morning meditation or something like that.
Nice. Are there any other tools that you use for meditation besides bowls?
Well, like other instruments, I do also have an ocean drum. So it kind of is like it's like a plastic drum that has like little beads in it. So when you like tip it, it kind of sounds like ocean waves. And I also have some chimes that I play, but I usually play that more towards the end. And I do have a rattle and a drum, which I don't think I would use in a sound bath per se, because it's more of like a disruptive, jarring sound or rhythm setting sound. Whereas like the bowls, because they blend together, you really don't know where they start or end. So it's a lot easier to kind of lose track of time and just be there in the moment. But I definitely want to explore different kinds of energy healing or shamanism with a drum and a rattle. I went to Mount Shasta a couple months ago for a meditation retreat, and the teacher did a meditation in a cave with a drum. And besides the intention setting and kind of the respect that we did before we entered the cave, there's no words in the meditation. And it was purely just from like the beat of the drum. And everyone had a wild experience, and it was all completely different. And I guess that's like the power of just uniting with the same rhythm, but also not having any preconceived notions based on what words you're receiving from the meditation.
Nice. And are there any misconceptions or things that you hear people say when you tell them what you do that you just wish they would stop saying, that like, okay, that's fiction or whatever, this is what I really do?
I don't think a lot of people say anything to my face. Usually, if you just say you do sound healing, people are just like, oh, that's cool, that sounds relaxing, and that's pretty much it. They probably just don't believe that I can do anything else. Um, while I think sound healing is capable of doing a lot more, you never know what's going to happen or what is going to heal, so you obviously can't really advertise that to people ahead of time.
That's true. You never know until you try to do it. Um, where else can anyone find you? What else are you working on besides the sound? Are you doing any other projects?
Well, I've been kind of living nomadically for a while, so I haven't entirely settled. I'm currently in New Brunswick, Canada right now, which is a province I've never been to. So I've just been kind of connecting with the spiritual community out here to see what's going on. I think there's a festival that's coming up. Um, but besides trying to find a place, because as much as it's nice to do things digitally, it's really nice to have physical community to actually connect with. So that's what I kind of want to focus on right now, and actually finish my website, which has been in progress for quite some time. But yeah, since I've been living nomadically, it's just been the people I've met, and I found different yoga festivals across the country. So I was fortunate enough to kind of attend some of those as I was driving across the country this summer.
That's very cool. So, where can people connect with you then? The website's still coming. So, Instagram, Twitter, Threads.
Yeah, anything on like Instagram or Twitter, and I believe I have my milkshake with some of my links on there. So you should be able to find me on there, and if there's anything you want me to offer over Zoom or anything like that, or a festival or any other kind of collaboration, just send me a DM.
And everyone, we're going to put all of Katie's links in the description below. So make sure you check her out and support her work. Katie, would you mind doing the bowls one more time before we leave?
Sure.
That's amazing. I love that so much. All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Again, everyone, we'll put Katie's links in the description. So make sure you give Katie a follow on social media. Katie, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.